Hi, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and welcome to the recap of the May 2019 ChemKnits Dialong. This month I was inspired by some hazy lights in a rainy evening, and so playing with these bright pops of color with some very, very dark colors as well. We dyed some sock yarn from Dyer Supplier that is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, with some fluorescent dyes in fluorescent lemon yellow, fluorescent fuchsia, and fluorescent safety orange. Then I added on some nylon zip tie resists in points and then dipped them into navy, black, or a combination of navy and black. In this recap, we will open these up to reveal what the yarns look like, look at the finished dried yarns, and at the end, I will share pictures of some of the yarn that you dyed inspired by the same photo. Before we go reveal the resists, I also wanted to give a peek at the second kind of colorway we went for, which also started with a fluorescent base, and then I layered on speckles in navy, twilight gray, and espresso bean to give these peaks of bright amongst all of the dark speckles. At the very end, we threw in one final skein into the pot for some leave no dye behind and got a really nice pastel tonal gray. I'm going to go wash all this yarn off camera, but let's take a closer look at the resists. So as I said, I layered on the fluorescent powders and then I dipped them into some darker colors of acid dyes using 1 tablespoon of navy, 1 tablespoon of navy plus 1 tablespoon of black, and then 1 tablespoon of twilight gray, which actually is way less pigmented than navy, and then 2 tablespoons of black for this final one. We'll see how they look together, but we might end up with a really cool fade set. If you look closely at the resist ties, you can see those bright pops poking through. Each of the skeins has 2 zip ties. One that really is just a tie to keep things tangled and to make it easier to lift. And then the second one was our resist point. And in all of the cases, we wrapped around 4 places of the skein, which I think will be apparent as we open this up. Whoa. Oh, this is cool. So you can see the 4 resist points. We've got some pops of orange, still some of that lemon yellow, and the pink. And then also, because of the way it's together, we did get uneven absorption of some of this navy dye, and so it's more or less in places, giving us some really nice pops of color around the whole skein. Okay, next, let's look at the second one. And just to show how I folded it, I sort of put one section in together and then I looped the other one around twice. So that way they wouldn't, at least with the first 2, it wouldn't be evenly distributed. And ooh, doing it this way, I was also able to, ooh, look how sharp this one is. I like the white, there was some white lights in there too. Doing it this way allowed me to ensure that there was a little bit of yellow, orange, and pink left in all cases. I really like this combination of navy and black. I think that we've got some purples from like the reflection on the street, but I think that this kicks things up a notch. Maybe if on the first one, maybe if I had used a little more navy, I would be just as excited, but I think that this combination is great. For the last one, I did fold it up a little differently. I sort of just looped it around twice. Let's see. This one might have been a little tighter. I know that the zip ties can't get that small, which is why I used one tie to go through, ooh, multiple times. This, ooh, did I go through, I must have gone through 5 times. Look at that. That is so cool. It's like hazy, bright colors, and then we've got more of this black around the outside. This is awesome too. A very different kind of feel than the other 2, where I think that the patches of color are a bit more discreet. But now let's look at all three. These colors are beautiful. I don't think you can really appreciate the pops of fluorescence because there's even speckles in here. I did the fluorescent colors with dry powder, knowing that the pink and the orange spread out a lot. And so therefore I might end up with some speckles and sort of haze there. The yellow spread out a lot as well. I had never used that fluorescent lemon yellow before, so I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think of the three, my favorite is this one with the navy. The black is cool, but I think that the black tone is a little too warm. Maybe, yeah, I really like this combination of the navy and the black. But we'll see how things look once they dry, because yarn always looks way brighter and darker. Ooh, look at that. Yarn will always look a little brighter and darker while it is still wet. I will go and do all the washing off camera. If there's anything really notable, then I'll come show you. There might be some minor bleeding from some of the fluorescent colors, but I'm feeling optimistic. So hopefully you won't see me until we're at the dry yarn. But I will put the yarn through the spin dryer after I wash it, so that way it'll dry a little faster. The heavily speckled one bled a bit during washing, but the water that is coming out of the spin dryer is clear. So that is very encouraging. The more I look at these colors, the more excited I feel. I love the way that this sort of goes with the inspiration photo and those flashes of light and the shining colors that you can sort of see through this nighttime rainy scene. And we've got these great pops of fluorescent yellow, orange, and pink with these muted blue, more navy, and then blackish backgrounds. I think that you could definitely incorporate the three of these into one project as a, well, ultimately I think it would be a fairly subtle fade. I'm not sure how the difference in where the pops of color are located might alter the way it feels on, say, this last one that I dipped in black, but I don't know, I love them together. For me, one of the big moments of truth is going to be looking at these yarns under our black light. And there's no question that we can see those fluorescent pops glowing, especially where they speckled. I think where those neon colors are more dilute, you don't really see them as much. But the whole thing definitely has some fluorescent quality to it because we have these fluorescent colors over the whole thing. It's hard to get the color accurate here, but in some of these areas you can really see the bright specks of the speckles, and I think that that is just awesome. I find it really interesting that using zip ties for resist was not my favorite back when I was playing around with trying to get a galaxy and wanted sort of star-like resist. But dyeing our yarn and then using the zip ties to add the resist and then over dyeing them in a more dark saturated color was awesome, and I think that these are absolutely spectacular. We did have one leave no dye behind skein after that last black, and we got this warm gray. There are some hints where you feel, yeah, not quite red or something, but there's definitely a warmth to it that's sort of heading in the direction of a taupe. But overall, I would call this a beautiful tonal gray yarn. Since I knew these resist techniques I wanted to play with would take a little while, I wanted to look at this color inspiration from yet another angle. And so I started off by layering these fluorescent colors on top of two more skeins of the 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon fingering weight sock yarn from Dyer Supplier. And then I decided to speckle over it using a combination of Dharma Dark Navy, Twilight Gray, and Espresso Bean. If I zoom in, it's hard to say if you can feel the different tones in the speckles. I know that both Twilight Gray and Espresso Bean do break through speckling, and a lot of them look navy, maybe some look a little black, but I'm not necessarily reading the purples from the Espresso Bean, except it's hard to tell because the undertone from the fluorescent colors that were there could shift the way the speckles were perceived a bit. And since I speckled all of them all over the yarn, it's not like I know, okay, this was the navy section to then go and sort of keep an eye on that. I do wish that it were possible to layer on these dark saturated colors and then speckle with the fluorescence. Unfortunately, that wouldn't work because you won't see a bright color on top of a dark color. The only way to get something like that is through resist. And so you could go back and do your fluorescent colors, then tie them off with string in sort of butterfly ties to get really sharp, small, bright speckles on the darker backdrop. Now for our Blacklight. Ooh, this is cool. I know that the tones aren't showing up as well on camera. It's definitely looking more blue, but in person, I see bright pink, yellow, and orange in some really, really fun speckles. I really like that the brightest fluorescent glow is from where the speckles land. So that part seems to strike pretty fast. But there is some color that doesn't strike fast that sort of washes around. So, goodness, maybe you could speckle fluorescent colors on a black backdrop and have it only show up under a black light. That would be pretty cool. These skeins definitely still feel very warm toned, but these darker, more cool toned speckles definitely did sort of tone down the fluorescent neon feel of the yarn, even with some of those pops still showing through. Well, there we have it, the rainy evening collection of colors that I created for the May 2019 ChemKnits Dialog. And now it is time for my favorite part of these dialogues. I asked all of you to submit pictures of the yarn or fiber that you dyed inspired by the same rainy night photo that I used. And you submitted them through the ChemKnits Facebook page and also using the hashtag ChemKnitsDialog on Instagram. It is so inspiring to see how many different ways people will interpret the same photos. Some people might be drawn to the reflection on the street, others to the spots of bright neon color. And maybe other people will take a completely different moment from this photo that they want to translate onto yarn. Stay tuned for the 15th of June when I will release the June ChemKnits Dialog photo on Instagram and Facebook. Make sure that you follow me so that way you don't miss the announcement of when that live stream is going to happen. Even if the recap has gone up or if you want to dialogue from a past month, feel free to share those photos with me. I absolutely love seeing with them. And if you want to share them with the ChemKnits community without being featured, because maybe you don't want to be featured in the video, we have a private thread to share your photos in the ChemKnits Lab Facebook group, which is a wonderful community filled with a lot of you. And it's great because we've got people dyeing yarn for the first time, people who have been dyeing yarn for a long time, and all kinds of things in between. And so it's just a really wonderful collaborative learning community. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and if you enjoyed this video and love these live streams, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, leave a comment below, and make sure you turn on that notifications by pressing that bell icon so that way YouTube can let you know when I'm starting a new live stream, because these live dialogues are so much fun and you really don't want to miss them. I would love to thank Dyer Supplier for giving me this yarn for free to play around with. I am really enjoying this 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon base. And if you want to learn more about it or the other bare yarns that they offer, you can find affiliate links in the video description. finally, if you would like to support ChemKnits on another level, go and check out the ChemKnits Patreon. Patrons get some really awesome perks like early access to new videos, behind the scenes sneak peeks, and more. You can also find a link to that in the video description and iCard. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.